Hi guys, this is Tahmoh Penikett, and I am at ComicsOnline.
How's the con been?
The con has been incredibly powerful and magical, and that's putting it lightly. I've been doing conventions for 20 years, and I can say definitively this is the most special convention I've ever been to. The amount of love that we've received over this weekend, the incredible outpouring of support through kind and honest words, and even more so, regardless of the struggling economy and people really having a hard time out there, the incredibly generous support that they've given in these auctions so this money could go to the Hogans, who've had a real tough ride for years now. Just, it's overwhelming. I literally, tears were brought to my eyes, joy, and I was almost confused when they told me the number that was achieved yesterday. I'm just, it speaks volumes of the ability of community to come together and help each other out. There's lessons there. This is a show that hasn't been on for 20 years, and here we are 20 years later, and one of our own is in a bad way, and our fandom has come together with us and given so generously to help out when they themselves are struggling, and it's just, I'm so touched and I'm so encouraged and so inspired by that. All of us should try and act like that in life every day, and remember that regardless of all the powers out there trying to divide us, just remember there's more that we share in common, and just try and find some empathy and sympathy with your countrymen, and find the middle ground and be respectful, and just try and work with empathy and sympathy and even curiosity. I just did a panel, and this question came up, and it's not something that I paused to think about, but it came out of me, and it's just I remember that how much struggle I had after the COVID experience that we all went through, and then the subsequent strikes in our business and everything shutting down. Very divisive times, and they still are. But like families, debating, even being broken up, relationships ending, and I think all of us need to remember that we're just so inundated with so much news and media, no clear portals for truth and narrative that we can trust in anymore. Nobody. Where do we find that anymore? There's no belief in it. That's why people are leaning in podcasts. But we need to remember to have curiosity and respect for each other, because we're all struggling. We all have different stories. We all have different backgrounds that we come from, and it's imperative for the survival of humanity moving forward.
Well, this, I think, is a testament to the work and the story that you all told 20 years ago, and how it resonated for so many at the time, and continues to really stand out as just a seminal story arc about the pitfalls of technology against humanity and what we're facing. But all of it feels timely and still feels contemporary 20 years later. Isn't it
like, honestly, isn't it almost unsettling how relevant the show is? Like today. Mm-hmm. We were saying the same thing 4 years ago, and we were saying the same thing 6 years ago. Oh, isn't it amazing how relevant Battlestar still is? Like, Eddie was one of the few who knew it was going to be relevant 20 years later. But how relevant it is now, on the precipice of this massive election. How relevant this is now. Like, this show. The parallels are insane. It's crazy. It's coupled with Elon, showing off his Cylons the other day, and his aspirations, the billion, like Eddie was talking about last night, we're gonna have 1 billion, personal robots in the house, and it's like, holy shit, this is all coming true. I'm old enough to remember I grew up with sci-fi, and I read about this, but in so many ways I didn't feel or think a lot of it was going to be a lot of the stuff that we would have progressed as fast as we have in my lifetime. And now that we're here, especially with the AI thing, it's a little scary, even though I've always read about it and I've been fascinated about it, and I've understood, or at least I did, the possibilities, the good possibilities about it. But there's also aspects of it that are completely terrifying that we've all examined in science fiction for years. And it's here. It's now, man. It's happening in the next few years.
Well, I think you've had a narrative through line with your career of technology gone awry between Battlestar and Dollhouse, and I want to come to Dollhouse in a moment. But I would love to start off with, as far as Battlestar moments, what was the casting process like for you?
The casting process for me, I was a young actor at the time. I was starting to work professionally, but smaller gigs, a few guest stars here and there, some supporting roles. But I was deeply into acting school at the time and very passionate about it and working my ass off, because I started relatively late compared to a lot of people in Vancouver. A lot of them started their late teens, early 20s, and they were already in the business. I was like my mid 20s when I really focused and got into it. And I remember getting the audition, and I remember reading the sides. The scene was Helo having the conversation with Boomer and saying, "Listen, it's okay. I'm giving up my seat." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Listen, you're going to be okay, but this is it. This is it. There's nuclear explosions happening. Like, it's over. You got to go. I'm insisting on this. This guy, Gaius Baltar, this is one of the planet's geniuses, and there's more worth to this man, to what's left of humanity, than me, and I'm giving up my seat." And of course, I'm paraphrasing, and there's only so many words, but that was the essence of the scene. That was the truth of it. It doesn't get more gangster. It doesn't get more heroic than that. Like, what an amazing scene for a young man to play. And I read it, and I knew, man, I didn't know that I was going to get the role, but I knew that I was going to do my best work that I'd ever done. Like, I read it, and I remember with absolute, like, there was without a doubt, I knew definitively that I was going to smash this. Like, I was going to do my best work. I was itching to get in the room already. And I remember doing all this extra work. I was almost in like a dreamlike state after I read it, because there was something that clicked for me. And there was a part of me that was like, I'm going to get this. And if I don't get this, I'm going to do my best work yet. And I was in a different state. There was something, I was so focused, and I was in a different place leading up to that audition. And I talked about it briefly on stage just now in the panel, but I was in the audition room, and all the actors there's a room set up where they all sit together, and very purposely was choosing to be outside of that room. And I was just sitting on the ground. I was just in my zone, and I was there, man. I was so focused. And this gentleman walked by with gray hair and glasses on, and he stopped, and he just kind of looked at me, and I looked at him, and he's like, "Hi." And I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And that was it. Just kind of looked at me for a second, then he walked in. And that ended up being Michael Reimer, the director. And I assumed that. I assumed it was either him or a producer, right? And I went in the room, and he's like, "Hey again, man." And I was like, "Hi." But I was really already in the zone. I didn't want to chit-chat. I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was like, he's like, "Do you have any questions or anything?" I said, "No, I'd just like to do my thing, sir. And if you want to play around, let's do it." And I did the scene, and it was a great take. And it was raw, and it was truthful, and I felt great about it. And he's like, "Great, but interesting choices. Why did?" And I told him my choices, and he's like, "Oh, that's wonderful. Do you want to try this? And we'll do this." And I said, "Sure, we can do that. We can try that." I said, "Personally, I think that this is, but it's not my script." So so we tried it again, and he was like, "Thank you." And I was like, "Thank you." And I walked away from it, and I didn't hear 3 days later, 4 days later, 5 days later. I didn't hear a week later. So by 7 days, I was like, well, it didn't go my way. But there was a part of me that was still at peace with that. I was like, I know I did great work there. I know that. And I didn't have enough years or experience to really know that. One of the hardest things for young actors, we're always doubting and thinking about the work, and could I have done better, and did I do good work? It felt good. Maybe it didn't, because I didn't get any response. That's the hardest thing of our craft, right? There's rarely, even when you do good work, you rarely get, "Hey, you did great work," but I was okay with it. And then on the 8th day, the next day, my agent called me up, and she said, "Hey, you booked this role." The thing is, I had no idea the size of the role. I had no idea whether it was going to be just a miniseries. I didn't know what they didn't give me the script, so I didn't know. But I was familiar with the original Battlestar. I knew it was reimagined. All I had was that scene, man. So that's what I was going on. So you can imagine, I got it, and I was so excited. But even more excited when my childhood idol, Edward James Olmos, was at the goddamn read-through. I saw him walk by with Mary McDonald, and I said to all the actors, these Vancouver actors I know, outside, I was like, did you just see Edward James almost walk by? I wonder why he's here. And they're like, dude, that's the lead of our show. And I went from pure excitement to abject terror. Like, started sweating on the spot. I was like, oh my God. Anyway, it's all surreal. I've told the story a million times. It doesn't matter. It's a beautiful story for a little small town Yukon boy like me. From the middle of northern Canada, like the far reaches of northern Canada, a tiny little community, born and raised. And I say this with humility, but I say this also to inspire people and kids and younger people or anybody of any age. Like, if you've got a dream and you wanted to pursue it, you got to pursue it. This ride is short for us, man, and that's one thing elders will always tell you. And I'm so happy that I had the gumption, I had the will to try and pursue it, because it took a lot of work, man, and a lot of people told me it couldn't be done and I wouldn't be able to do it. And I feel so blessed, man. I feel so blessed. And this weekend has been a perfect example of that journey, This ride hasn't been easy. It never is for a professional actor. Like, our industry largely dried up. I know people, relationships were lost. People lost homes. Like, it's been tough. Nobody's prepared to not work for 9 months, and then throw in the COVID experience too, and then another strike, and then another dry up. And right now there's nothing being filmed here in North America. It's all overseas. Like, it's been bumpy for us. Some of us are blessed to be working, but a lot of us, it's been a tough few years, but we still do it because we love this craft so much. And we love the art. We know the importance of it. And it's imperative in these times, these contentious times, that we continue to make art.
And I think it's amazing that we have opportunities like this event where we get to all come together. And you've already said very nicely of just the importance of the community, but just having the opportunity to gather again post COVID and celebrate the shows that have helped us through the hard times and the creative process.
Look at us, we're dropped in right now, man.
Thrilled.
It's amazing. Yeah. You and I are having a conversation. We're completely right here, man. Yeah. That's so important. We lost that. We saw how damaging that was during COVID. Like, we unfortunately, so many of our elders had to pass by themselves. There's no more egregious crime, it's so terrible that had to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think all of us, unfortunately, we had a real wake-up call and remind us of how precious this is, how precious it is to drop in with our loved ones and other people and just connect. Not distracted, present, have conversation. We have to communicate. That's what we're about. This is how we're effectively move forward. This is how we tell our stories. This is how we effectively understand each other's stories and empathize with others who may be completely different than us. It's by locking in and being present. And we're so distracted with all these devices and all this technology, but it's imperative right now that we take that time, that we keep that curiosity alive and do it in a respectful nature. We've all got different stories and backgrounds, and the fact that we have different opinions, that's what makes us human, and that's always going to be there. That's never going to change, and we need to remember that. There's reasons that people have different perspectives, and you need to respect that, and you need to find the common ground more than anything. And I keep saying this stuff right now this weekend because again, we've got a massive election coming up here, and things are really divided. And I just remind people to just be respectful and try to act in love and respect in everything you do right now, because it's so important.
We also don't want a new Caprica situation is really what it comes down to.
We really don't. And hell, man, it could easily happen.
To stay in the vein of politics for a moment, I remember the first episode post miniseries that really hit home during the early days of COVID, and just the shitstorm that kept happening. Yeah. And it just felt like we were being inundated, and Battlestar was an escape for me during those times. So I appreciated that. As far as the story itself, there were so many amazing plot twists and just pillars throughout the miniseries into the series itself. Which one still hits home for you these years later?
I mean, dude, the entire show was incredible. There were so many plot twists, so amazing. I mean, listen, selfishly, mine, like when Helo finds out, that like this woman that he's slowly been falling in love with, that this pilot is the enemy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that she's she's lied to him and that he feels like such a fool in the beginning, and he goes and he almost kills her. He shoots her in the leg, right? That was a really hard scene to shoot for me as the actor too, because it's just difficult to imagine that dishonesty to that level, that treasonous behavior, the fact that the embarrassment of him being duped. Do you know what I mean? And also because his heart was involved, and he thought it was mutual. He thought these feelings were real, and then the conflict of that moving forward to realize that, okay, maybe there is more to this. Maybe she isn't just a machine, because these feelings are real. What I'm getting from her is real. You know, I think again, like that's a commentary on how we can really believe there can be some overwhelming narratives that really blind us, and we can fall in line and believe them very easily, and it's important for all of us. And I've learned this as I've gotten older, because I can be very passionate about certain issues, but we need to like keep our minds open. There's always more to the story than you realize, and don't ever just think that people are one thing. You know, it's a dangerous and scary thing, and that show really explored it. You know, like season 3 with the twist there, like, you know, like you spoke about, like the insurgency and the justification for it and the extremes that were happening. Suddenly we're blowing up our own people, and suicide bombings and all these issues that were being explored that were actually happening in Iraq at the time. It's fascinating stuff. You know, come on, the final 5 being revealed. Wow. Watching my fellow actors deal with that, when they found that out, man, there was almost a full-on rebellion. Like watching Michael Hogan, Emmy award-winning work, like incredible work. But part of the reason that work was so incredible, Trucco, Douglas, all of them, Reka, is because they really grappled with this news. They could not believe it. It really depressed them. They were so hard for them to deal with, because they believed so much in their characters, and to find this out, and you saw that work transpire on screen, because these very real characters were dealing with that conflict of finding out something about themselves that they didn't realize. It's just such a fascinating show on so many levels, man. So fascinating.
The fact that the actors didn't know, I think it makes it that much stronger of a performance. 100%. And the revelations, it came across beautifully on screen for all of the performances. But even the Earth reveal, the mid-season, season 4, just the devastation, and then the following episode we come back from the mid-season break and everyone is just destroyed.
Yeah, and you remember that, listen, that mid-season reveal, we thought the show might be ending on that. It was very depressing. So for us as the actors, it was like that day we were filming, we're like, man, is this really how we're going to end? Like, it's so bleak, it's so depressing. There's no hope here. I remember a part of me just being like, there's no way, man. It can't end this way. Because again, we were going into a strike. Yep. That's what was happening. So we didn't know if the strike went too long.
That would have been a weird ending.
It would have been a horrible ending. And the show wouldn't have endured. Yeah. There would have been a critique of the show always that it ended too darkly, that there was no hope. There were so many things that were unresolved. I'm so grateful that because I've been on a show that didn't get resolution, that didn't get justly another season. You know, I did a fantastic show called Dollhouse with Joss Whedon, and that show deserved one more season. The writers are so talented, but they were forced to wrap things up. Like, okay, you got 6 episodes, wrap up all those storylines. It's just, you can feel that essence of it, and it's not right. It's too bad. I mean, it is what it is. I'm grateful it even happened, but like, yeah, I really loved the last half of the final season. I thought it was really incredible. I thought they did an amazing job.
Well, let's pivot to Dollhouse for a moment. We've had some conversations in the past, but my wife and I bonded on our first date about Dollhouse.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been a show that's always been impressive to me, but despite that 6-episode wrap-up, the sheer amount of twists that we had in the last couple episodes was astounding that you guys pulled it off the way you did.
It's wild.
And it still felt satisfying, but I would just love to hear, memories from that series in particular. I'm always intrigued about production.
Yeah.
So, what stands out from your time with Dollhouse, and just more what went into it, especially knowing you had to wrap it up prematurely?
Yeah, I mean, there's a tendency for me, because I'm often asked about it, to talk about the negative aspects, like the stuff that could have been, should have been, what have you. Let's just focus on like the fact that I worked with some just incredible actors. Olivia, Harry, Lennox, Enver, Miracle, Deechin, who's had like an amazing career now. Enver too, he's one of the leads of Invasion. There's really good actors. Joss has always had a good eye for actors and their potential, and a lot of people from that show went off and had a wonderful career. I'm so grateful that I got to have that time with them. We had some older veterans there who really anchored it, and then some younger cast, and I was kind of in the middle. I was a vet, but not to the status and experience as Harry and Olivia, So it made for a good balance. And then, of course, Joss brought in, all these other amazing, actors to come in, like actors he'd worked with in the past. Tudyk and, wonderful actors like that. And just production-wise, I mean, come on, look at the Dollhouse. That was sick. It was so beautiful for the time. It was such a wonderful room that they built there. And Joss was ahead of the game. This idea has now been explored a couple times in different shows, but he was way ahead of the game, as usual, He's such an intelligent guy. He's such an amazing creative. I really look forward to the future work he does again, because he's immensely talented. Shooting in LA, going from Battlestar Galactica and going to LA, and, for a little Northern Canadian kid still realizing his dreams and shooting in LA and doing a series there. That was a big deal for me, man. It's a really big deal. I just wish it wasn't so wrought with doubt, because a lot of it, I was just always worried about the show being canceled. I think a lot of us were, that feeling was quite pervasive and alive there, because Joss was feeling it, and that's unfortunate. But it is what it is, and I learned a lot from that experience. And if there's anything it reminded me of, is just, every single day you got to appreciate when you're doing the stuff, when you're doing the work and you're there. Who knows? Tomorrow's not guaranteed. Be present, enjoy it. The fact that you're able to work with these professionals at this level, that quality of work, making the social commentary that we were, it's a dream come true. So it's all precious. Really enjoy it.
Well, you're back here next week for the Supernaturals
right away.
Convention with Creation Entertainment.
Yeah.
So a week later, Gadriel and Ezekiel, correct?
Yeah.
So getting to enter the world of Supernatural, they had 15 seasons of storytelling and mythology, but getting to play an angel and add to that element of the story.
Yeah.
What was it like entering and getting to personify that character?
It was interesting, man, because I'd never done it before. I didn't quite know, I'm an actor who takes this craft very seriously. I have a lot of my training is based in classical theater training, and I want to do the steps necessary. I've studied with many different schools of acting, and I had to incorporate all of them for this, because I wasn't quite sure how to approach it as an angel, and I hadn't seen the show for a while, so I just made some choices, and they were good choices, and luckily they fell in line, because what I didn't know, and I thought I was going to be the first one playing the angel, but it turns out that Jared actually did a scene before me, so he'd already established it, being one of the leads, which I didn't know. So I came in with my choices confident that I was going to be the first one doing it. I was setting the precedent. And then I find out right before I'm about to do one of my biggest takes, and the director's like, hey, do you want to see what Jared's done? And I'm like, what Jared's done with what? And he's like, well, playing Gadriel. He did a scene the other night. And I'm like, nobody told me that. Are you serious? Yes, I want to see it, because I'm about to play one of the lead actors. You guys got to show that to me. What kind of insane belief do you have in my talent that I can just, you know what I mean? Like osmosis, I'm going to instantly learn and be able to emulate what our lead actor's done? Are you guys trying to get me fired before I've started? So he showed it to me, and luckily Jared was doing very, very specific movement, almost, it was almost like superhuman-like. He was almost theater-like. He was almost like a dancer, and I was like, I can incorporate a bit of that. I can do a bit of that. And luckily his cadence, the way he was speaking, was similar to the choice I'd made. I felt like this angel's obviously very old. He speaks in a different way. It's almost thespian-like. Do you know what I mean? And so I made those choices, and a lot of that started in the beginning, and then it became a little bit of something else. It transformed a little bit and probably settled, which was good. I only had 6 episodes to explore it, but it was a wonderful experience playing him, and there were some really pivotal things that were happening in my life at the time, challenging things that were happening that really fell in line with that performance, and it really informed it, and I cherish that.
Any other projects that you have coming up that you can share?
Yeah, I've got a few different things happening here. I just finished a film called Van Life, and it's an indie, probably falls in the horror sort of thriller genre. Largely indigenous cast, which was amazing. Even our writer was Métis, and really, really cool project, man. Like, I had a lot of fun doing this. It was so much fun. I got to work with the amazing actress Michelle Thrush. She's a Cree actress from Canada, very, very experienced veteran, just fantastic actor, and a bunch of amazing younger actors too, man. Like, our whole cast was really, really talented, and Trevor Cameron was our writer. And he did a fantastic job, and I really love the production team. And we shot that in Saskatchewan, which I'd never done before, in Regina. And a lot of it was done with the LED technology. It was an LED studio there. So we shot. It's a combination. We shot some exterior stuff. We did some stuff outside, but we also shot a lot in the studio. It's the first time for me using that technology, and I had some reservations. But after we shot in there, man, I was really, really impressed. It was cool. There's an efficiency to it, obviously. You can get a lot of things done by using this technology, and inevitably it's not going anywhere. It'll be the way forward a lot of times with a lot of projects. And it was just a wonderful team. I had a really kick-ass experience, and I play a very, very interesting character that I think people are going to get a kick out of, because it's not something I've ever done at all. He's a departure for any character I've ever played. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it.
Van Life. Tune in. Check it out.
I want to end with this. I don't know if you remember this exchange with me, but it was something that stood out to me for over 5 years.
Okay, cool.
It was you, me, and Michael at San Diego Comic-Con.
And which one? San Diego?
San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay.
So it was for the 15th anniversary of Battlestar Galactica. And the three of us were having a conversation because you had just come out of the press room, and a lot of the questions were a little bit more generic, we'll say, or the same ones you've been asked a lot.
Over and over, yeah.
And the exchange was about, I think Michael was saying that he felt bad that he was giving the same answer, and you were saying it's just more the same questions over and over again. But what stuck out to me during our conversation was the importance of asking better questions and being engaged, and making sure that it's genuine. Yeah. And I appreciated the fact that you both wanted to make sure that the responses were genuine, that you were giving the same answers. The consistency is important, but more so your voice came through with that. Yeah. And every single time I do an interview, that conversation stands out in the back of my mind, because I want to make sure that the person I'm speaking with, there's value to both
That's
parties.
Awesome, man.
And I wanted to make sure you knew that how much of an impact that conversation.
That's
There was a
awesome,
little
man.
moment, but
that's a huge compliment, man. And then, that's just a lesson, because I've learned that from someone else too. That's just it. It's like we should all be trying, especially with great pieces of art or something that's people put their time and love and value into. Let's explore new aspects. Let's be intelligent. Let's push ourselves. Let's ask more compelling questions. Let's explore avenues and aspects of it that we perhaps never considered before. That's happened a lot this weekend, and I've been so impressed. These are some of the best panels I've ever had, and I love panels because the questions have been fantastic, man.
Well, I've always tried to do my due diligence, but I think just being able to be vulnerable and making sure that you do, put in the effort for the conversation versus just give me the soundbite of the thing that you're working on. I don't ever want that.
Good.
And
because that's going to satisfy you as the artist also, man. You got to do
it goes both ways. But it meant a lot, and it means a lot that we get to spend more time together today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. I celebrate everything you do. You make sure you let me know when this interview's up, and I'll pass it around. And I wish you guys nothing but success, and keep up the good work.
I appreciate it.